My name is Zenobia Harvey, and
Hello, Zenobia.
I'm the founder of Feel the Heal, many other things, but it's definitely not about me. I'm so excited and privileged to be able to interview the lovely Kasha Hunt on the changing of the guard. She's an author. How excited are we? Give some hearts. Give some hearts. This is going to be a great interview, and so we would love your feedback. If you have any questions along the way, type it in, and we got you. And so, we're going to dive right into it.
Thank you, Keisha.
We're going to dive right into it. And so, you write, you direct stage plays, you're a radio show host.
Right.
The executive producer of the Rap Church of Texas, a blogger, and like so much more. And now you're an author? Like,
come on here, executive.
Where did that come about?
Well,
because you do a lot of stuff. So
yeah. I would say that I actually was just talking about this. I was on a live feed earlier with Shed G, comedian, actor, and we were talking about how in this generation, in this time, in this season in the world, you got to have multiple streams of income. And so really none of us can afford to just have one source. And so all of us have been blessed with giftings. Hey, Gabby. Hey, Jasmine. What's up, Deacon George? All of us have been blessed with giftings and gifts and talents. And so that God has given those to us to use, and He said that it will produce wealth. Amen. And so I believe that the way I'm able to balance all that and do all of that is strictly by God giving me the strength and the fortitude.
I absolutely understand. So that's just another form of income. Come on, millionaire. I see it all over you. I see it all over you.
I was going to give you a high five. She let me hanging, y'all. Y'all saw that? She let me hanging. It's all good.
I just wanted your nails to be cute by themselves.
I know, out of a time when everybody else is like looking ratchet, my nails are still
intact.
No. The day before they shut nail shops down, I was in there, y'all. Blessing.
Listen, because we knew you had to do this interview.
Amen.
But, okay, so I absolutely understand that. Now, I know a lot about your story, a lot. I may not know half of it, but out of everything, what inspired you to write this particular book?
Well, I would say what inspired me to write this particular book was many years ago, not many years ago, but anyway, when the Ram Church first started, Bishop Younger came down for our pastoral installation. And during that installation, Bishop S.Y. Younger prophesied to me. And he said, you are going to write a book. And so after service was over, I was like, because I was already starting to write a Christian romance. I said, he's prophesying about my Christian romance. Hey, Sparkle. And so, but then one of the young ladies, just random young ladies, walked up to me after service and was like, I'm so excited about what was prophesied. And I said, I'm already writing a book. And she said, it's not that one. And so I was like, what? It's not that one? So I said, okay, Lord. Well, little did I know after Bishop prophesied that to me that I would go into this marriage that would actually produce this book. And so what inspired me to write the book was what God allowed me to go through. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, because I think that I believe it would have came differently too. And so your foreword is actually written by our pastor, Dion Richard. Hey, Pastor, we love you.
Hey, Kiki.
And so out of everybody that has inspired you, that has been heroic in your life, all the way from your dad to your mom, what made you choose our pastor to do your foreword?
Well, you know what? Pastor Everett has really a special place in my heart. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I was looking at who would write this forward, I did consider the people. I considered my spiritual mom, Pastor Yvonne Bennett out of Detroit. I considered my actual biological father, Pastor Johnny Lee Hunt Jr. But when I look over my life and who has really impacted me, the one thing I can say about my pastor is that, in the Bible, it talks about how Jesus would leave the 99 and go after the one. Well, after I came out of this relationship, I was broken. I was in a loss. I was lost. I was in uncharted territory. I was literally a lost sheep. And my pastor came and got me. He left the 99 and he came. Oh, God, I give you glory. He left the 99, y'all. He came with his hook and he hooked me and pulled me back into the ramp. And so that is why he had to do my foreword, because the story was in the marriage, but the book was in what happened after the marriage, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes
And
sense.
so I asked my pastor to write my foreword because he came after me when I was a lost sheep, y'all, wandering around stranded, just lost. And because to me, he epitomized Christ at a time when I really needed Christ.
Yeah.
You know?
So he played a major part in just the whole book coming to life himself, because
Right.
he actually was a part of the story.
Right,
I definitely can understand that. And that's why it's important for us to be
he was
able
part of
to
the build-up.
pay attention to those that play those roles in our life.
Yeah.
And so I think that is awesome. We love you, Pastor. You changed her life. Thank you for sending out the book and bringing her back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And bring it back. Anyways, about this title, it's called The Changing of the Guard. And so, like, when I think about that, I think of Britain, and I think of, like, these guards. That's the first thing that come to mind. What made you come up with that title?
Well, Changing of the Guard, to be honest with you, when the Holy Spirit gave it to me, I really didn't feel like it matched the book. Because to me, I thought it would be something like I went through hell and back, you know, or I made it through the fire, you know, something like Chariots of Fire, just something like 300, you know, just something really powerful and impactful, because I literally felt like I was in a war, you know. And but as I began to study the changing of the guard, you know, when, like you said, the first time you thought about in Britain, how you know, in European countries, how the guards stand at the castle, and it's a 24-hour watch, and they're constantly shifting out shifts. So as I began to study the changing of the guard, I began to realize that we have guards that stand over our life. We have angels that stand at the four gates. Come on, we have angels that stand at our gates, amen, if you know, make sure they post it and not something else. But anyway, during this transition time, there was a changing of the guards in my life, because I was in a place where I was like on a path, you know, and I had God as the guard. But throughout this process, there was a changing of the guard, which means there was a time and period in this relationship where God was no longer at the door, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
And then there was a transition period where I put God back in right standing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how we got changing of the guard, a spiritual encounter with the spirit of manipulation, because that's exactly what I was encountering.
And you know, because I would have assumed that the book would be called something with manipulation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it really does not match at all, but it makes so much sense now that you've explained it.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how God can just give you one thing and you think it looks this way, but then it's like a total opposite, but
He's
it
awesome
it all comes together at the end of it. So
Yeah.
I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
So I noticed that in this book, you actually shared a lot of your past relationships leading up to the grand finale. Why did you do that?
You know, one of the things that I realize that some of you probably already have, to understand where you are, you have got to look at where you've been. And it wasn't just a moment in time where I entered into this situation, but it was moments that led up to this situation.
Yeah.
And so in order for you to get an understanding of the totality of my situation, you would have had to understand what I went through, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Before, to see how I got where I am.
Okay.
Because the reality of it is that the enemy looks for openings and cracks in us as individuals. And so he looks for our weaknesses. He looks for our moments of vulnerability. He looks for areas where we feel like we're lacking, or we're not maybe 100% in, and then he capitalizes on those. But then also God will take those weaknesses and capitalize on it to make you stronger in the area as well. And so for me, that was a situation. I had an encounter with the devil, but God allowed it. God orchestrated it.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
I get it. Now, you've mentioned before that you went through a period called sleeping awake.
Yeah. And sleeping awake, to me, is it actually deals with a time and period where I was literally walking through every day. I was awake, I was functioning, I was going to work, I was coming home, but I was asleep. Spiritually, I was asleep in my mind. It was like I was a zombie. And a lot of times women and individuals that are in abusive relationships, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual, they will find themselves as a self-defense mechanism to actually kind of like block out reality just kind of go into like an incubative stage,
Yeah.
or maybe a hibernation. And so I went through a period where I was like literally hibernating, where like I was functioning, but I wasn't aware,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like I would go through a whole day at work, and then I get off, and I wouldn't be able to tell you one thing I did, but obviously I was doing my job because they didn't fire me.
It's almost like you were zoned out in the right way, in a weird way.
And I believe it was a protective measure. So to me, sleeping awake is kind of like indicative of a zombie. Like they're dead, but they're alive.
Yeah.
But I wasn't dead. I was asleep.
You sleep.
Oh,
And you woke back up.
I woke up.
Now, as many of you will see, when you purchase this book, you'll come across this part which really caught my attention. You actually call your ex-husband Beelzebub, and the first thing that pops up in my head is like like Satan or something like that. Like what made you call him that?
Well, you know what? Beelzebub, of course, is
Beelzebub.
Beelzebub or Beelzebub. Different people say it different ways, but for me, the reason why I call him Beelzebub is because I really feel like I had a face-to-face encounter with a form of Satan, if that makes sense. And when we look at Beelzebub, Beelzebub is actually the Lord of the Flies. And so what do flies like to do? Flies like to get in oil. And we have oil within us. It's an anointing oil. And so what the enemy desires and what Beelzebub desires is to get into your oil to contaminate it. And so he's Beelzebub because he's the Lord of the Flies, and he got into my oil, my anointing, the thing that I labor for, the thing that God gave me, and he contaminated it for a season, and so he's Beelzebub.
That's a very strong word to use, but you defined it very well. Yeah. And many of us, we either do have that person in our life or have had, and some people will eventually run into those people. And so, although it's a strong word, it makes a lot of sense with the character. And it just kind of scared me a little bit when I found out that you called him that. I said, Lord, this man is the devil. But listen.
Well, I put it this way. He was being used.
Absolutely.
He was being used. And that's what the enemy does. He can't force us to do anything, but he can find an opening, he can find a door and come in through that door. Yeah. And through that door, he'll have access. And if you allow whatever he is trying to press in you to hibernate long enough or to inhabit you long enough, you will become that, if that makes sense.
I remember when you first told me about this, and it's probably a few years back when you gave him that name, and I was like, well, maybe she's just mad at him or something like that, but it makes so much sense now with the depth of the story, with everything that you had to go through. And I was like, I figured out that you were really serious when you gave him that name. Absolutely. But because that is what his character fit, his spirit fit at that time. And so listen, I think I done came across mine before, but I think but it's not about me. It's not about me. But
remember, we wrestle not with flesh and blood. And so it's the principalities. And so I call him Beelzebub because of the principality that was operating through
Absolutely.
him. Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And we wish him the best.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Anyways, a lot of us, I'm sure you guys can relate, have gone through manipulative relationships, abusive relationships, whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, whatever the case may be. Yeah. What type of advice can you give to women or men that are right now in those relationships that are like deep in?
Well, I think the key thing that you have to determine is, am I dealing with the spirit of manipulation, or am I just dealing with a habitual liar, or someone who is unfaithful, or someone who grew up in an environment of abuse and maybe they're just doing what they've always seen their mother or their father do. And so there has to be an awareness made. You have to be aware of what you're dealing with. For me, what I was dealing with, I had never experienced before, and I had been in an abusive relationship. My first marriage was an abusive relationship, and that's talked about a little bit at the beginning as well. And so when you begin to realize that it's a spiritual thing and not a physical thing, the way you would do it, a physical thing is different. But the answer to all of it is you need to separate yourself. You need to separate yourself. You need to get get out that environment. You need to get away from whatever it is until either they get help, until there's an exorcism, until there's something happens that what the personalities, I guess, or the principalities or the habits or whatever it is that they're demonstrating that are affecting you in a negative manner. There are people that are in relationships that, they feel like they're happy. He doesn't hit me. He doesn't this. But if he's affecting you emotionally, you can be emotionally abused. You can be mentally abused, And so that is not of God. God is not designed for us to be in relationships where we're being mentally and physically and emotionally abused. And so you just got to separate yourself, identify it, pray against it, because one of the things that I experienced, and even, when you read the book, you'll understand that just because I separated myself did not make him go away. Okay? And so there's some precautionary things that you've got to put in place. Hey, Sister Tasha, thank you for joining. There's all these different things that you've got to take in consideration when it comes to that, because this is a tricky thing. And we see all of these 48-hour shows and all of these criminal shows where people in relationships are not happy that someone wanted to leave, or happy that someone didn't want to be with them anymore, and it escalated and it turned to something else, whether they said, let's talk. And even I personally, I didn't share this particular instance in the book, but I was in a relationship with someone who murdered the girlfriend he was with after me. And it could have been me. Come on here. But by the grace of God, it wasn't. And so we don't know people that we think we know. I mean, have you ever had a situation where you thought you just knew somebody, and then they did something that you was like, where did that
way out of character?
Right. Right. It was something that if anybody asked you, you would say they would never do that. And then guess what? They did it. And now you have no explanation for it, because our mental and emotional balance, and that line is it's thin, y'all. It's thin. And sometimes you can tilt the scale. So my recommendation would be to I guess extrapolate yourself from the situation, but do it with wisdom, do it with good timing and help. Yeah. Because sometimes just having that person knowing that your family is behind you, knowing that your friends are behind you, can be a deterrent from them coming back and doing it in retaliation. And you had asked me earlier about all the things I'm doing and why add an author onto my list of things. But what's so crazy is that what I'm doing right now, which is, being an author, writing this book, was actually the first career I ever had in my mind as a kid.
Was to write?
Yes. When I was a kid, I fell in love with reading romance books. And I actually, at the age of 13, wrote my first romance book. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Oh, praise God. This is one. Thank you to our producer, Renee Whitley. She's doing such an awesome job. Thank you for joining us, Donald, Sister Aurelia. We appreciate you for coming on to this beautiful interview by this lovely individual, this lovely young lady right here.
Listen, I'm just privileged to be able to interview her, like all of this, because what we didn't even address at first, I wanted to know how this y'all have to see this book cover. She is absolutely stunning on this book cover. I would buy the book without the title.
Oh Lord,
she look good though.
Praise Him.
I get it from her, Y'all will see it one day.
God bless you. but as a child, this is what I always wanted to do, and I was a bookkeeper for 25, 30 years and all these other things, and never really finished. I started 2 books, y'all. Both of them were Christian romance books, and never finished. Hey, JJ, thanks for joining us. But this one book, that God inspired me to write was finished. And I know what a sense of accomplishment it is to finish something.
Did it take a long time, or was it because after everything, how some people there's a quick, but some people theirs are more
a process
over the years.
Right.
How?
So I would say when I finally put my mind to it to sit down and write, it was quick. When I first came out of the marriage, I wrote like the first 6 paragraphs. And then I just never touched the book again. And then it was just last year in October that I was like, God, put pressed it upon my heart to finish the book. And so I finished the book, and it was supposed to come out in January. Then it was supposed to come out in February. And I'm just like, I just had so much peace through all the delays with the publisher, delays with different aspects of the book, and even the forward. God bless you, Pastor, love you. But listen, it was purposeful. It was a purposeful delay. And so even when it was released a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Lord, why would you have me release this book during a time when we are on lockdown as a nation, as a world, as literally the whole earth is kind of in different variations of lockdown. But also I was telling my pastor a couple of Tuesdays ago during prayer, before we were unable to go back to church, God spoke to me and said that he was going to bless his people even in the time of famine. And so and so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just trusting God. I've been trusting God for the last 2.5 years with no source of income other than what he allowed me to be blessed with. And so I'm just excited.
It's always the stuff that doesn't make sense that end up making sense at the end, because we can't even fathom what goes on in God's mind or what he has in store for us. And maybe he allowed this to happen to go ahead and push it. I was praying before I got here, and I just had this feeling like this is just going to blow up. You know what I'm saying? Because of what the book is about. And so I also noticed that your subtitle says, an encounter with the spirit of manipulation. Mm-hmm. What is the biggest lesson that you learned from this encounter? Because that was really deep with what went on.
I would say the biggest lesson I learned from that encounter, hey, Senilian, thank you for joining us tonight. The biggest thing I learned from that encounter is that before I entered into this relationship, I really thought I was at my strongest point in my life, as far as my walk with Christ, as far as where I was in ministry, as far as, how we get, as far as when as far as my mindset went, I was at a place where, like, I've never been stronger in the faith. I've never been stronger in ministry. I felt strong spiritually. Yeah. I had a prayer life, but even at the time when I thought I was the strongest, the enemy was still able to hoodwink me, still able to manipulate me. And so I think the biggest lesson I learned is that even when we think we are the strongest, come on here, we cannot get off of guard. We cannot, get relaxed and get lackadaisical. Yeah. Because that is the time when you're most comfortable and you feel like you were in like such a great space, head space, mental space, spiritual space, is when the enemy will come in with some trickery, some foolery, and because you're so relaxed and so confident, because I really thought if I could just get married, I would be perfect. Because this is just a transparent moment. The only thing I felt like I was struggling with was fornication. And I said, Lord, if I could just stop fornicating, I'll be perfect. I'll be just like you. But it was in my first year of marriage that God showed me, no, you got a nasty attitude. It was my first year of marriage that God showed me that you ask people to do for you what you wouldn't do for them. And so the first year you'll see in my book is God exposing me to me.
To yourself.
He was exposing me to me. It's like, you know what? I'm not all that in a bag of chips. I'm just a bag of chips. You know what I'm saying?
You probably weren't even a bag.
I probably wasn't. I probably was a couple of chips. I probably was a couple of chips, and the strength that I had, I would pray, but I didn't have a real prayer life. Yeah. But God allowed me to get in a position where I was calling on him, and I had to learn what it was like, what it felt like when he didn't answer. I had to learn what it felt like when it felt like he was ignoring you and you out here on this island of HE double hockey sticks and you feeling alone. You know what I'm saying? I had to go through that. Yeah. I had to learn that. And then in the second year, he allowed me to see that spirit. He allowed me to see the spirit through the spirit, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
And everything that he did, it was unveiled. But God wouldn't allow me to say nothing. He wouldn't allow me to show I even acknowledged it. Because he wanted me to see how it operates.
Oh, so that you'll
be able, Yeah. So I would say I learned that even in my strongest point, I was still weak.
Okay.
And regardless of how strong I think I feel or feel like I am, I need God more than ever. I need God. Come on.
Listen, I can relate. I definitely can relate, and I
I
understand
need you,
that.
Jesus.
And so I have another question for you, but before I do, we want to make sure that if you guys do have any questions, please go ahead, type it in now. Our producer Renee, she's gonna give it to us, and she's gonna answer as many as she can. So then that way, just shoot it in there. We look forward to them. But I do have a question. It's not one of the ones that I was supposed to ask, but with you explaining what you just did, did you ever, because you were so, let's say, prayed up, as you said, and you kind of, you were on your high horse and you finally got married, when everything fell apart, did you go through a period of blaming yourself, like a guilt, because you thought, like, why can I see this if I was,
I would say I went through a period of confusion. And the reason why I say that is because God told me to enter into this marriage. Just like in the Bible, he had the man marry the prostitute. And it's like, why would God do that? Why would God tell me to marry a prostitute, someone that would never be faithful, that I would have to go and pull in off the streets, that I would have to buy back?
Yeah.
And so I did not know what God was having me marry at the time. And so I would say when I came out with confusion, because there were so many people saying that wasn't God. You missed him.
Yeah.
Because God wouldn't do that. God wouldn't allow you to be in a relationship where you're being mentally or physically or spirit or emotionally abused. God wouldn't allow that. But I'm here to tell you that you have no idea what God would allow. You have no idea what God will allow to get his glory out of you. And we also have to be careful of what we ask for, because I was always like, Lord, I wanted this. Lord, I want to, I had all these things. I was telling God, Lord, give me more patience, give me more peace. Lord, everything that's in me that's not like you, take it out of me. But how does he take it out of you? Through trials and tribulations. How does he give you a greater anointing? Through trials and tribulations. How does he purge you? How does he cleanse you?
Yeah.
It's through trials and tribulations. It's through lessons that you learn. And so in order for me to be stronger, I had to be broken. And so, so I came out confused because my family was saying, you missed God. It wasn't God. Friends and even different people that I knew from the spiritual realm would say, you missed God, you missed God. And
because
I never
it didn't
forget.
seem right.
Right, because they thought that God would not allow me to do that. And so I never forget, I was standing at the altar at 6809 McCarty. This is after Pastor came and put me back in from my dad's church. And I was standing at the altar, and Bishop Younger was here. And I was so empty. I just wanted to feel God.
Yeah.
Here in the little side. I wanted to feel him like I used to.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel his presence on me. I wanted to feel his anointing on me. And I was standing there at the altar, and I just stretched out. I was just empty. And I had my head down, and I was just crying silently. And I never forget Bishop S.Y. Younger came and whispered in my ear, and he said, God allowed it. And when he told me that God allowed it, something broke in me, and I just began to wail, and I went down to my knees. And it was at that point that I realized I wasn't crazy. It was at that point that all the confusion and everything else was gone. It was at that point that I realized, okay, God, you allowed this what?
Oh, no, you
Amen. Oh, okay, glory to God. Amen. So, yeah.
Okay, and so we have a question for you.
Okay.
But no, listen, you could. That's how you know that there is some depth that goes into it, especially when you get to the point to where you begin to well up with tears and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I just thank God, because it's gonna you are affecting me more than what you know right now with
Lord
even
God.
just a little bit that I have gotten from you with your answers and stuff like that. And so, listen. She'll cry baby with me too. So it's okay. We're going to all cry together.
I get it from my daddy.
But, Keisha.
Okay.
Hey, Keisha.
Hey, Keisha.
Keisha has a question. She says, considering that some of us know your ex, were you ever reluctant to release this testimony for the fear that it may be perceived as a character attack?
I would say I never had any trepidation about releasing the book, because the whole purpose of me experiencing that was so I could share my experience. So I didn't have any trepidation, but I will say this. I started the book off actually with my first marriage when I was 22 years old. And I kind of shared one of my quotes, or I shared a quote on my Facebook, and my ex-husband reached out to me, and he was saying, he was hurt because he thought the book was about him. And I said, no, it's not about you, but I had to include you because you were, my first abusive relationship. and through that dialogue, you know, he was able to admit, you know what, I did grow up, you know, seeing my mom with guns in her mouth. I did grow up seeing, you know, my mom being abused by my father. And so he understood that I had to include that. And so I would say this is not at any point a character assassination, because one of the things that I say and I stand on is that I was dealing with the spirit. I don't even look at it as the person. I've forgiven the person, but it's a spirit.
It makes you wonder what this person will think once they see the book and see the release of the book and stuff like that. Ain't nothing gonna happen. But
hopefully deliverance will take place. Hallelujah.
Okay, so we have another question from JJ.
Hey, JJ.
She said, did you delay releasing the book and testimony because you had to share what God was purging you from?
So I would say I didn't delay the book. There were delays. And if it was up to me, the book would have been out. Because I've always all my life been the type of person that as soon as God would give me something, I would run out and do it. If God gave me a business idea, the next day I'd be a corporation. And people that know me know that's how I operate. But this is actually the first process I went through where I moved at God's timing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like I said, if it was up to me, the book would have been released in January or December.
Because you do jump on stuff.
Right. But God has been tempering me, and he's been changing me, because I'm not as spontaneous as I used to be. I actually think things through now and try to figure out the end. If I tell y'all how many corporations I started because of a God idea, and it might not even have been for that season, but all I did was hear it and run. And so I would say I didn't delay it. I didn't delay it myself. I just went at God's timing, which means when delays happened, I was at such peace.
Yeah.
And I just said, Lord, whenever it's your will, you know, however you want to do it. And then when we got closer to March, he kind of gave me like a hard date, like, okay, this needs to be done this month. And that's why I was questioning, like, God, why March? Why when we're on lockdown because of COVID-19? You know, but his ways are not our ways. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He says he'll take the foolish things to confound the wise. And so I don't know, but I will say it wasn't me delaying, because I believe the process of what needed to happen to me happened within those 2 years or a year and a half after my marriage. That healing process, that understanding, and even God giving revelation on things that were spoken to me before the marriage. It was like, now here's why. Yeah. You know, here's why this happened. Here's why this happened. And so it's just been a beautiful process. And this is proof how God will take something. You got to go through ugly. Pastor preached about this. You got to go through ugly before you get to pretty. And so this was me literally going through ugly. Yeah. In order to get to beautiful. And what came out beautiful and what was birthed from that was Changing of the Guard, this beautiful book. And I hate y'all can't see it because of the ring light. But most of y'all seen it on Facebook or whatever. But
and Bree Green says that the shutdown ain't stopping nothing, because look, you still can purchase online and they will deliver. Amazon is still running.
Hey, Brother Q, thank you for joining us. Absolutely.
Actually, you know, the shutdown didn't do nothing but make it to where all y'all can tune in on time at 7 p.m. because you ain't have to go to work. But God will provide.
Yes, He will. Yes, He will.
I have a question for you. Now, I think I know what the answer may be. It's a question that most people get when they have books and stories like this. Mm-hmm. If God showed you right before you walked into it, that is everything that you had to go through to birth this,
I wouldn't have did it.
Because I was going to say, I think the Pastor Kasha side would say, yeah, but I'm not going to speak for you.
I wasn't Pastor Kasha back then. Yeah. I was Minister Kasha, but I promise you, I would not have went through with it. No. Because the flesh of us does not want to suffer. Hey, Catrice, thank you for joining us. Trey, what's up? The flesh doesn't want to suffer. And that's the reality of it. And I'm just real enough to be transparent enough to say, if God would have said, Kasha, I want you to go through this marriage where you're going to experience mental, physical, and emotional abuse. You're going to be hoodwinked. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. Will you go through this to birth this book that I want you to send to the nations so that they can understand this spirit? I would have said, pick somebody else, God. Even though I stand up all the time and say, here am I, Lord, send me. If I would have known, I'm probably saying 80%, especially where I was religious, I wasn't spiritual. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was religious, but I wasn't spiritual, which means I accepted Christ. I knew Christ, but I didn't know him like I know him now. It takes you going through something to know him. Hey, Sister Tiffany, thank you for joining us. And so, I had to go through that. I had to endure that, so that I could have this beautiful relationship I have with him now, where like he's not just Lord, but he's Abba, Father. He's Jehovah. He's my friend. You know, I don't have to wait to a set time to talk to him or pray to him, but all through the day I'm like, Father, what do I do now? Lord, do you want me to do this? Lord, should I? You know what I'm saying? It's a relationship. It's
a relationship.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
No longer a slave.
Ha!
No longer a slave.
You're so crazy.
No, it made me think of that verse when they say you're no longer a slave. He calls you friend. You are a child of God. And I think where you go back to the religion part, that's almost a slave mentality. I have to do this. I have to do that. Right. But when you graduate from that and you know who God is, you understand that you no longer have to operate that way. And he'll meet you at any time.
Hey,
and
Asha.
so
Hey,
I know that we have another question. Come on with the questions. We love this.
Yeah, this is Q&A time, so if any of you have questions, our producer, Renee Whitley, will get those questions to us, and we'll try to get them answered. And then we're going to sign a couple of books, and
we're going to tell you where to get the book from, because I saw that, JJ. We're going to give you all that information. This question is actually from Karen.
Okay, Karen.
Can you talk a little bit about the danger of emotional abuse and physical abuse?
Versus
physical abuse.
I'm going to be honest with you. I have been in a strictly physical abusive relationship, and I've been in a relationship that had the emotional and the mental and the physical, more so emotional and mental. And to me, the emotional and mental was worse than the physical. Yeah, it was worse than the physical. So I would say the danger of any type of abuse is dangerous, and that if you're in that situation, you need to get out. So she said, can you talk a little bit about the danger of emotional versus physical? Physical abuse, of course, is going to affect you physically. It's going to affect your external body, whether, in my first marriage, my mother-in-law would sometimes call me raccoon because I would sometimes have two black eyes. And with that, you actually heal. Your body physically heals. Your eyes will go back down. The black will go away. Your bruises will go away. Whereas with emotional abuse, it's more of a process to get healing from that and to get back to a place where you're standing on a solid ground.
Yeah.
Because your emotional abuse deals with your inner man, whereas physical abuse deals with your physical, your outer man. And so, so I would say it's definitely more dangerous. And, I hope that answers your question.
I was having flashbacks when you were explaining that, because a lot of people, they take the physical as like the most intensive form of abuse. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes you wish that somebody would punch you in your face or choke you, rather than have to go through the emotional ends of like the verbal and stuff like that. That stuff lasts for years, for a long time. You can get a bruise that goes away really fast if somebody hits you, but that emotional end is...
Well, I was going to say that normally in a physically abusive relationship, there is an emotional and mental aspect, because that's how they keep you staying there after they have put their hands on you. So the difference, I would say, is that from what you were saying as far as the name calling, yes, that's more of an emotional abuse. Whereas them manipulating you to believe that I had to hit you because it was your fault, because if you would have just did this, that is more the mental abuse. And so they physical and the mental go hand in hand, because they have to have that aspect to keep you in that relationship.
So we have another question.
Okay.
It's a really good question. I like it. From Keisha again. Come on, quick. Yeah, now Keisha's going to ask some great stuff.
Come on here.
She said, after you came out of the manipulation, how did you navigate dealing with people who treated you like the person you were before?
Okay. To be honest with you, I was really at a place where I was kind of in, I don't know, I don't want to say in my own headspace, but I had to get to a point where I couldn't be influenced by outside influences. I had to silence the voices for my own sanity. I had to silence the voices, because the truth is that some people will never see you beyond where they saw you. And that just means that that person wasn't meant to go with you beyond that.
Yeah.
And so the way that I kind of dealt with it and navigated it was that I really was focused on my relationship with God and where I was supposed to be. So I really didn't hear a lot of what was being said. And because of who I am, people didn't bring it to me. But I know that there was verbiage.
Yeah.
I know there's people today who still have put me in that box. And our pastor talks about this all the time, how people will take a snapshot of you, and you are that snapshot. And you just are stuck in that place with that person. And the reality of it is that maybe you've outgrown that relationship. Maybe you've outgrown that friend, that person, or whatever. And you need to just separate yourself and go on and continue to grow in God. Because people will always try to pull you back into the box. Why? Because when you're in the box, it makes them feel more secure. It makes them feel better about themselves.
Control.
You know, right. And no, I'm not contained. What God has in me is much bigger than a box. It's much bigger than my imagination or what you can even imagine. And so therefore, I have to now focus on Him and His desire for my life. And that's whether you want to be my friend or not.
Now, I know that Lorraine had a question that I read on here.
Okay.
She said, because of this, will you allow yourself to remarry and fall back in love again?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, when you're free, and this is what I want to share with you guys, we've got to stop carrying old luggage into new relationships. Ooh. When you are free, and what I mean by free is mean like you have forgiven for real.
Yeah.
You've moved on. You've learned your lesson out of it, and you're like, okay, God, thank you for that. Let me go for it. So I'm totally free. I'm totally healed. And so, yes, I'm absolutely open for love. I'm not looking for love.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Because another thing that you'll find out in my book is there was a deliverance that took place after the marriage, that God had to break something off of me that was a stronghold.
You told me
right.
that.
And so you read about that in the book. But absolutely, oh yes. Oh yes. But I tell you what, I'm wiser. I'm stronger. Come on.
I got a pappy on the way. We just don't know who he is yet. Pappy got grandkids
right.
too.
But I'll put it this way, since that relationship, and even recently, people have tried to approach me, but my level for stupidity, my level for nonsense, my discernment is like much keener as well. And so I'm at the point, I'm not going to invest a whole lot in things that are not going to make a return. And listen, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about money. But I know now what a healthy relationship should look like. I know now what a God-like relationship should look like. And so because I know that, because I know my Father, then I can identify what is not that.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to spend a lot of time with it. My cutoff game is strong. I know people hate hearing that, but what I mean is that I don't have time to invest in stuff that's not going to produce.
Like Keisha said, you got zero tolerance.
Zero.
Helping me.
Yeah.
Zero.
Right.
Nada.
And it's not about how much money you have. It's not about your career. It's really not. And some people are stuck on that. You know, they're like, oh, he's got to make so much money a year. He's got to. I don't care about none of that. Why? Because I know God has literally shown me who my source is. And I know that no matter who God places in my life, we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
And if whether we have to struggle for a little while, we're going to come out on top. Come on here, because I'm a true Proverbs 31 woman. Come on, I don't mind getting out there and going to the market early in the morning.
Okay. Proverbs 31. I'm looking at both. We all listen, but no. Sister Denise, Denise. I always say it wrong.
Hey, Sister America, thank you for joining us.
She said, how much time did you allow between each relationship before you got into another one?
To be honest with you, I can't even tell you how much time, but I will say I've been divorced for 2.5 years now. And out of that 2.5 years, I've maybe been in, I wouldn't even call one relationship that lasted maybe 2-3 months. And so I don't think it's about timing, it's about healing. And you kind of know when you're healed. But also it's about coming into the awareness that regardless of when I think I'm ready, Lord, when you tell me I'm ready, when you send that right person into my life, I know I'll be ready.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so before in my life, I desired marriage. So I looked for it in people.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Until the deliverance came, and y'all will read about that.
Okay, so I think everybody has this question because she does amazing with stage plays. You got a lot of them under your belt.
Yes.
Sister Lorraine wants to know, do you think you're going to turn the book into a stage play?
Yeah, okay, so I actually had reached out to my pastor earlier this year, and I said, Pastor, I think this year, because I do a stage play every year, I said, this year I think we're going to do a remake of The Wiz, but then as I began to research, I realized you got to have all these rights and permissions, and so the Holy Spirit placed it on my heart to do a remake of my book. And what's so crazy is that 2 years ago, author Christy Henderson reached out to me to make a play out of her book, and we went and did that at the theater, whatever it's called. But anyway, it was a great success. And so I believe that everything that God has for you to do, he allows you to do it before, maybe for somebody else, so that when it's your turn, come on, you
almost
know
like
exactly. Right, like a practice. And so that was Removal of the Mask. That was a stage play I did 2 years ago, which was a phenomenal production. Zenobia was the guest star in that, and she was amazing. And AJ Hunt was the co-star. But yeah, so yes, this year in November, mark your calendars, November the 6th or the 4th, whichever one is the Saturday, we will be doing Changing of the Guard.
I'm excited about that.
Yay!
Listen, and more than likely I will be in it. And so, no, I'm excited about that though, because I can see it as being, it's going to be intense too.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Real intense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So.
And it's going to be a movie, but let's keep going.
Listen, Tyler Perry ain't got nothing on her.
It is.
But we thank you, Tyler Perry, for paving the way. Now Kasha Hunt is on her way.
Come on here. I appreciate that. I received that.
You gotta speak it.
And it has been spoken. And my goal is just to stay humble and just see the Lord, where the Lord be revealed. All right, what we got?
We got JJ again. She says, tell us a little about how you overcame those who judged you, spoke negatively of you during that time and after. Almost kind of like with what Keisha said.
Right. I would say my heart was broken. I was already broken from the marriage, but just the fact that those who were around me not believing me and verbally stating to me that I missed God and I was wrong, it was very hurtful. How did I overcome it? I would say I overcame it through healing. And then even afterwards, there's always going to be adversity. Why? Because God is always trying to grow us and strengthen us in certain areas.
Yeah.
So I will say I'm overcoming, if that makes sense. Because every time I feel like I've overcome something, I've mastered something, something else will come along, a different hardship, a different trial, different attack. And so I would say I'm overcoming. I'm still a work in progress. And so, yeah.
Let's go ahead and press this. Hey, you guys, I'm just pressing something really quickly. Okay, so we do have another question, and we're going to get ready to wrap it up, tell you where you guys can get the book from. I have another question for her,
Oh, I need to sign some books, too.
She's going to sign some books, too. I'm going to get her to sign mine, but we'll do that off screen. Anyways, so this question is from Tanisha. She said, how did you alleviate yourself of the guilt and the shame of being with someone, staying with someone who abused you?
Right. Thank you for that, Tanisha. I will have to say that I had to get an understanding. And I think that that's one of the key things that God wants people to understand through my book, is that there's a misnomer that people that are in abusive relationships stay in them because they want to. Not everybody wants to, but there is through that mental and emotional abuse, it's actually a stronghold, if that makes sense. This was a stronghold, which means no matter how much I prayed, no matter how much I desired to get separated, there was something that held me in place. And so one of the things I do in my book is I break that misnomer that women who are in abusive relationships are weak. Women that are in abusive relationships, have no fight in them. Yeah. They're victims. They got a victim mentality. that is not the truth at all. Because trust me, before a man ever puts his hand on you, he's already started working on you mentally. He's already started working on your emotions. And they tear down everything that has been built up, and then they resurrect and build up things that are untruths and that are lies. And that's why I kind of talked about in my second quote that I shared on Facebook when my book first launched, that there's a difference between a liar and a manipulator. Because the truth is, all of us are liars.
Sometimes I'm a liar.
No, I'm saying,
okay,
and that's the truth. And all of us have a propensity to manipulate. What do I mean by that? There's a 2-year-old girl that knows that whatever she asks her daddy to do, he's going to do it if she just look real cute and look real sweet. So at the age of 2, there's a little girl that knows that if I could just convince my dad, you know what I'm saying, to not realize how sweet I am, he'll give me this candy. There's kids that know that if mama say no, I can go to daddy. Why? Because I can manipulate daddy. So all of us have the propensity to manipulate, but the spirit of manipulation is a whole nother shebang. The spirit of manipulation is something different. And I believe that God allowed me to have an encounter with one of the strongest forms of Jezebel, you guys. And when he allowed me to stand back and look and see the intensity of the evil that was operating, it was astounding to believe that I was connected with it. And so I didn't really have a lot of guilt and shame because God told me to marry him, if that makes sense. And then I didn't have the guilt and shame because I realized that as a victim of abuse, that it's not something that you can just walk away from. Yeah. Okay? It's a stronghold. And so that's what I guess would answer your question, alleviated the guilt and shame, because it was bigger than me, and it was bigger than, can you give me my white pen? It was bigger than me, and it was bigger than that experience, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a great...
It was bondage.
No.
It was bondage, y'all.
But it is broken.
Hallelujah.
We living free right now. But no, that is great. You guys had some really amazing questions.
Yes.
You had really great answers too.
Thank you.
And so we're about to wrap this up. Take it to the good part. She is about to sign a couple of books for you guys. And while she's doing that, I do have one last question for her. Now, I know this is your first book that's published.
All right.
Are there any plans for more books to come?
Absolutely. Those 2 Christian romances that I worked on and have not finished in like 5 years or 6 years, I'm going to hopefully I'm going to put it this way. God is going to allow me to find them somewhere on one of my electronic devices or thumb drives or hard drives or something. And I'm going to finish those books because I believe that Christians need romance as well. You know, something that's maybe not as vulgar as a regular romance and not as prolific or graphic, but just, not prolific, but graphic. And so, I want to release those. One is called, I just went blank. I'm sorry. But one is called Lisa's Story. And Lisa's Story is kind of written from a first-person perspective, kind of like that movie with where they were like speaking their thoughts the whole movie. It's kind of like written like that. But and then the other one, I almost said Charlotte's Web. It's called, I cannot think.
Is any of it like The Notebook? I heard about that, but I've still never seen that movie.
No, I haven't seen The Notebook either, but I can tell you it's nothing like it. All right. So,
she's going to actually sign some books.
I just need to know who purchased and who I need. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, this first book is going to be written to Bria. Bria, I don't know if you online, hit some hearts and likes, but I thank you so much for purchasing Changing of the Guard.
And what are, while you're doing that, what are some sites that they can visit to purchase the book?
Absolutely. So if you're watching right now, hey Tiffany, thank you for joining us. If you are interested in purchasing right now while we're online, you can go to my website, which is kashahunt.com. And you can purchase the book through the website. As soon as you purchase it, my producer will see that purchase come through on my email, and she will have me sign your book right here live while we are watching. So this
one's going to be for Bria.
Yeah, and they're also available on Amazon.com. All right, so this one's to Bria. I just want to say thank you so much.
Keisha Taylor said, "Are you?" Well, it's not funny, but she said, "Are you holding auditions for your play that is now, it's manifesting?" And so, are you going to be holding open auditions for?
Absolutely.
For that?
Yeah, just like I do every year. Yeah, there will be open auditions, so you guys get your dust off your acting shoes and acting clothes, and get your life.
I want to bring your A game. You know, Keisha can act. Keisha, are you asking for yourself? You got skills. But outside of that, we thank you guys. So the next person is after she's done with this, gonna be Darian Herricks.
Oh,
Harvey.
Darian Harvey. Is that somebody related to you?
You know what, Darian? We may need to speak with each other after this. We may be related. My last name is Harvey. We're a special group of people. And so,
all right, there's Bria's.
Bria,
okay,
here's
Darian,
your book.
listen, thank you so much for purchasing your book.
Got your little
What
cute
she
bag.
said? You coming from Oklahoma? You better come from Oklahoma and audition. Hey, Lakeisha, thank you for joining us. What Lakeisha say?
She's the one coming from
Come on
Oklahoma.
here. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, this is for Darian.
That's for Darian.
Where's that other white pen you had? Because this one is acting like it's coming out of ink.
She's gonna grab that.
But I also want you guys, while I've got you here, to make sure that you follow Kasha Hunt on Facebook, because everything that I've got going on, not Kasha M. Hunt, but Kasha Hunt, that's where you'll see my blog, Grace and Coffee, where we just have a good time talking about how to make life simpler and how to work this simpleology. And
I love those videos that you do for Grace and Coffee too.
Thank
They're
you.
like little short clips, but they're so inspirational. Little questions and stuff. She's so cute. She be walking around in the sun. She did a few in LA.
Yes, when we were out there for the launch of Ramp Church Los Angeles, I had a great time.
And so, who's gonna be next for the next book? You guys are really gonna enjoy this book. The next one is gonna be for Edna Bride.
Oh, Edna!
Come on here, Edna.
Hey, now me and Edna go back to the 4th grade, y'all.
Anybody named Edna is a powerful woman.
Hey,
Hey, Edna.
hey! Thank you so much, Edna. Here's your book right here.
And so you guys too, make sure you guys tune in to Women of Power as well every Tuesday, correct? At 7 p.m.?
Yes, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. All right, the next book is going to Nautica Hunt. Thank you, Nautica, for supporting your auntie. You're so awesome. You're so amazing. So I'm going to do Nautica's later.
And so, not sister. Look, I got to learn. I'm not in church. But it's okay. Lakeisha Hayes says,
Maze, okay.
Hayes, Maze.
Okay.
It went up. I can't.
Okay.
But she said, congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Woo. All right, next we got Amanda Mosley. Sister Amanda, thank you for joining and for purchasing a book.
And Jasmine says she just ordered her copy.
Come on here.
Listen, I'm not going to repeat that. But
Jasmine,
anyway,
what outlet did you order it from? Oh, JJ says she just ordered.
I'm actually about to order mine as soon as we get done with the interview too.
You guys let me know if you ordered through Amazon or through my website. Because if you ordered through the website, I'm going to autograph now. If you ordered through Amazon, I'm going to have to wait till you receive the book and autograph it then.
Yeah.
Amen. And I just want to say, Amanda, you are amazing. You're such an awesome sister. And I thank you so much for your support. This book is going to bless you. And it's going to give you a little more insight.
Do you have like any plans outside of this, outside of like the interview that you've done just now, like as far as like touring, like?
So yes. So listen, after we come out of quarantine, somebody say post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
You know, I did a live today with Shed G on on called Affected But Not Infected. Come on here.
Yeah.
But yes, actually, I'm going to be getting with JJ Jones and Sparkle Ephraim. And we're going to be working on a book tour. Yeah. And I'm so excited about that. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Sparkle bought a book, y'all. So I got something special to say to Spark Plug, because for those of you that see the cover, that see all of my promotional pictures on the back and on Facebook, Sparkle actually paid for me to have a photo shoot, and these pictures are all a result of the photo shoot that she purchased for me. And so I just want to thank you so much, Spark Plug, for that's what Pastor calls it, and it's contagious, Pastor. I'm sorry, but I call her Spark Plug, Sparkle, Spark Book, all that good stuff. But anyway,
she's a sweetheart.
Spark. I just want to say thank you personally and publicly for being such an awesome woman of God and just blessing the ministry. And little did you know that photo shoot would launch everything.
And I couldn't even tell, like, when I saw the pictures, like, I would have never known that it was for that. That's a very great picture.
Hey, okay.
JJ bought her book, too.
All right. Let me finish Sparkle. I'll say something special to you, Sparkle. I'll put this to the side because I got a lot to say to you.
She got a lot to say.
All right, Jakesha bought 3 copies. Come on here, JJ. See, that's my sister right there, y'all. That's my friend. JJ, who do you want them made for? Or just sign one and then you just want the other 2? Okay, gotcha. How do I start? You got to bring a pen up here for her. Just,
yeah. She's very special.
Yes.
And a special
So I'm
way.
going to sit 3 books aside for you.
Oh, Keisha just ordered hers too.
Oh, come through, Keisha.
Y'all are multitasking while y'all in this interview.
Glory to the Lamb of God.
And she said she got it from your website.
Okay, cool. So then I can sign your book. Woo.
Oh,
and I will get with you on whether you want it mailed or whether you want to meet me on the side of 35. Come on here.
She's going to meet you somewhere.
We in quarantine, but we free in quarantine.
Now make sure when y'all pass the book, y'all are 6 feet, so just toss it.
Be like, here,
She going to put a bag around it. Make sure you ain't touching each other, you know.
Listen.
Keisha got a baby at home. We don't need none of that. So throw it from one cart to the other. But we are going to wrap this thing up. I enjoyed interviewing you. And I hope you guys enjoyed the interview as well. Make sure you share. There's a lot of you on here. We want to make sure everyone gets to see this. Everyone purchases the book. And so, yeah, thank you so much for chilling and relaxing with us while we interview this lovely, lovely woman of God. Is there anything that you want to share? Anything you want to say before we sign off?
You know what? I just want to thank all of you for tuning in on tonight and for your overwhelming support. Be on the lookout. More is to come. So just stay down. Make sure you go like Kasha Hunt. Make sure you like Women of Power radio show. And we're going to keep this thing pushing. I want to thank my host again, Zenobia Harvey, for her beautiful and wonderful interview skills. She do a phenomenal job, y'all. I give it up to her. Woo. And then our producer, Renee Whitley, the woman behind the scenes who just came through on today in such a magnificent way. Yeah. And also, JJ, thank you for my gold glitter background and for just all of you that supported. I love you so much. Thank you, Keisha. I'm proud of you too. The book that you co-wrote on, and I love you so much. Us authors got to stick together.
Come on, authors sticking together.
Come on here. So God bless you all, and to all a good night. Remember that from Christmas, from the Christmas story.
We love y'all. We'll see you guys later. Share.
Listen.